This is a Barbarian guide for Dark and Darker. I'm going to show you everything you need to know in order to get started with the Barbarian class in this game. So, Barbarian, I recommend picking a female one because no one ever plays female Barbarian. It's kind of funny to be a female Barbarian. So, class, perks and skills, the first thing you're going to want to look at. Let's go through the perks and skills and talk about the different ways you can build this class. All right, so let's take a look at the perks one by one. There's different perks for different builds. There's basically two builds as a Barbarian. You can either be really tanky, or you can be a high DPS and chase people, basically. Tanky is usually better in team play to guard your cleric or your wizard or something. And then being the aggressive DPS is better. It's also good in team play, but it's much better in solo play. And it depends on which way you want to play, which play style you prefer as a Barbarian. So, let's go through the perks. Axe Specialization. This one's good regardless of which way you're going to play. We're going to go through all the perks, and then we'll talk about which perks for each class to pick. But Axe Specialization is great regardless of whether you want to be tanky or not, because most of the time you'll be using Axe as a Barbarian. You can use a Bardici, which maybe even counts as an Axe. I never looked, actually. But you can use a Zweihander, which is a terrible weapon right now in this game. But generally, you're going to be using Axes the vast majority of the time. You start with an Axe when you have default gear. It's just a good thing to have. That 10 base damage is huge. It's so good. Berserker is really good. This one makes you do more damage as your HP goes down. Once you're at 1 HP, you do 30% more physical attack. You have 30% more physical attack power. When you're at 50%, you have 15% more physical attack power. So it's just a really good thing where, because generally as a Barbarian, you end up getting a scenario where you're just beating on someone, and if you let up and back off, you're just going to die because if they might have ranged attacks, or it depends on who you're beating on. So a lot of times you're just full committed to beating on someone. Berserker's good because they're going to be fighting back, and you're just going to hit harder and harder and harder as you guys keep swinging on each other. So that's a good one. Carnage is not that great. So increases strength by 10 for 7 seconds when a target's killed. So this should apply for PvE too. The problem is strength's not that great. Like, I've tested it before, and unless they changed it in this playtest, which I doubt they did, I tried before, say, a cleric, and they have the ale build where you don't get drunk from the ale, you get strength, blah, 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 all this stuff. And buffing my strength by like 15 didn't really add that much. Like, it would go like, oh, instead of 8 headshots on a skeleton to kill it, it's 7 now, or something like that. It wasn't something nearly as much as you would want it to be. And because of that, Carnage is not that great. And it's after you kill someone. So there's like a niche scenario. Yeah, sure, you kill a skeleton and then turn and fight someone. Now you have 10 strength, but it's not even going to be enough damage to really mean that much anyway for such a niche scenario. There's better perks, basically. Iron Will increases your magic resistance rating by 100. Now, this is actually really good if you're being tanky. It could even be good as a DPS, depending on if you think you're going to be engaging against a wizard or sometimes a cleric, depending if they have judgment or not. So we'll get more on Iron Will when I come back through for the different builds, but it basically just resists magic, is a time and a place. It can be good in certain scenarios. Morale Boost. This one recovers 12% of your HP after killing a player. Same kind of position as Carnage, where it's like, okay, yeah, that is good, but even if you have a ton of HP, like 150 HP, that's still like 20% or 20 HP or less. And it's like, and you have to kill a player. And generally, it's better just to have perks that give you things before you kill the player, because it's not that often that you just kill 3 players back to back to back. I mean, it does happen in team play, especially, you know, playing with a good team and stuff. But, I mean, and it's like, yeah, that 20 HP could help, but I'd rather just have 10% HP from this one over here, or something like that. There's just certain ones where it's like, it's kind of just better. Other things are just better. Like, it's only if you're like, it's really good if you're stomping noobs, you know, you're just going against 3-mans who don't know what they're doing, and you just kill all 3 in a row. You're just like, and you're really good. Then, yeah, sure, you could have fun, but it's generally, I'm not a fan. Savage. So this one, physical damage bonus increases by 10% when not wearing any chest armor. This one is amazing when you're doing hatchling runs, where you don't buy any gear. Whatever it starts you with when you die, you just run in with that. This is great, because you default with no chest armor, so that's good. And also, if you're running DPS builds, it's good if you don't do chest armor, which we'll talk more about, you know, armor and move speed and stuff in a sec. So Smash. This one's like a must-have. This one's so good. So Smash allows you to break unreinforced doors, so the normal wooden-looking doors, and random treasure chests. So it's a good mimic check, which is not what's good about it. But more importantly, you can break doors. And that will allow you to chase people who would otherwise have gotten away. It narrows down the enemy's options when they try to close you out with doors. Also, it increases the impact power of your attacks by +1 to better defeat blocks and parries. I've never really known exactly how that works. You know, when you're swinging on someone, you're swinging on someone. You don't really, you know, but that's also a nice bonus. But that's really not why you want it. The main reason you want it is to break doors, so you can chase people. Toughness, this one's better for tanky builds, but it's still like, okay, HP 10% is good, but it's not that great. That's literally like, oh, I have 15 more HP. Yes, there's a time where you win a fight and you literally have like 3 HP left, and if you didn't have toughness, you would have died. Yes, that will happen. But I'd rather do 10% more damage and hope that I hit them more than me. Like, it's better to bank on your skill level than to do this. But there's a scenario, and we'll talk about that once we get to tank versus DPS in just a moment. Two-handed weapons expert. This one's okay. but it also depends. Are you using a two-handed weapon? You know, there are some one-handed weapons that barbarians can use. If you're using a two-handed weapon, it's an option. Increases physical attack power by 5% when attacking with a two-handed weapon. Pretty straightforward stuff, and we'll go more about that when we're talking about DPS versus tank builds. So keep that one in mind. It's okay. So now skills. There's Rage, there's Reckless Attack, Savage Roar, and Warcry. So Rage is one that a lot of people run. What it does is it greatly increases your strength. I don't know how much exactly. And your movement speed is increased by 15% for a short duration. I don't know the exact duration offhand. But this basically the reason you get this is so you can chase people. You got a guy just out of range, and then you pop Rage so you can close the gap and then swing on the back of his head as he runs away, you know, or just to latch on to people better so they can't get away from you. Rage is really good for that. It really will help you get kills, especially as a more aggressive barbarian. Then we have Reckless Attack. This is a really niche one because what it does is the next hit ignores 75% of your enemy's defense. And during this, you lose 55 armor rating, so you're very vulnerable. So you want to use this and immediately get your hit, or else you're going to take heavy damage until you do. You can also cancel it by just swinging onto an object. I don't know if that counts a wall or not. I've never tested a wall, but if you hit like a box or a chest or something, I would hope a wall, then it'll cancel it. But the problem with this is it's only good against a heavily armored cleric, a heavily armored fighter, or a heavily armored barbarian. Everyone else is not going to... That 75% ignoring of enemy's defense is not going to be that great unless you are against like a heavily armored, you know, ranger or something. Even then, though, it's like it's a niche scenario. It's probably better in team play, and it would probably go better if you're playing as a tank and you don't need to be as consistent with aggression. You know, and we'll talk about that in a moment. So Savage Roar. This one is the one that every barbarian I know runs Savage Roar, and the reason is there's two reasons. One of the reasons is that it reduces the enemy's physical damage bonuses by 25%, which makes them do less physical damage, which makes you more likely to win the melee fight against the fighters, the rogues, the rangers, the clerics, and so on. But the real issue with it, the real thing that people get it for that's so good is PvE. Because what it does in PvE is it makes them run away and not fight back, which gives you 6 seconds to just relentlessly beat on an NPC. And the other scenario is, and we've all been there, the scenario where you have like 7 skeletons on you and you finally get trapped and you're like cornered and body blocked. Instead of dying, you can Savage Roar and they all run away, and you can get through them then and get out and run away and get away from them. That's another scenario. So it can save your life, save your gear, save you from, you know, wiping a lot of times. So it's a really good overall ability with a lot of versatility. Warcry. Now this one's really only worth it in team play because it works with your team. You don't get as much value in solo. I mean, you could run it, but it's just not realistic to run solo. So it increases the maximum HP of yourself and nearby allies by 25% for 7 seconds. Now, if you're playing with team, the ideal time to pop this is, you know, there's always those moments if you've been in team fights, everyone's kind of just like feeling each other out, and then suddenly there's the hard engage from the fighter or the rogue or the barbarian, and right when people are about to start swinging on each other, you're going to pop Warcry. Everyone on your team has 25% more HP. You're that much more likely to win. It only lasts 7 seconds, though, so you want to pop it right when people are about to start swinging on each other, or else you're just going to waste it. So it's not that great. There's too much nuance with it. It's inconsistent, but it's an option, and we'll talk about that now with builds. So the main builds are you're going to be tanky and defend your team. Main reason to play tanky as a barbarian is defending your magic user, your ranger, or your cleric. So like your wizard, your cleric, or your ranger. And they want to hang back, and they don't want to have the enemy get to them, but the enemy wants to get to them. And in that scenario, it doesn't matter if you're tanky and slow. It doesn't matter if you don't do a lot of damage. You can just stop the enemy from getting to your ranged users. And if they try to, they have to walk past you, and you swing on them like 3 times, and then they're dead. So that's the reason to play tanky. Tanky's generally only for team play. You could try it solo, but you'd be better to have a more balanced build, at least for solo play. And if you're going to play tanky, axe specialization is still good. Make sure that your baseline damage is just that much higher. Even as a tank, you still want to be able to hit people and kill people. So always good to get axe specialization. Berserker's an option, and it depends. Do you want to go full tanky or a balanced tank? If you want to go full tanky, you're going to get Iron Will axe specialization, so you get magic resistance, so wizards can't kill you. And then what you're going to do is you're going to get toughness, so you'll be even tankier. And then you're going to get smash as a supportive barbarian, so you can break doors, so you can chase people better. And that would be it. So Iron Will, toughness, smash, and axe specialization. Now, one thing you could swap out if you want to would be instead of toughness or Iron Will, depending on if you think you're going to run into a wizard or not. You can swap one of those out for Berserker so that you can hit harder as you're tanking damage and beating on someone. Or you could potentially just try to be more balanced, drop one of these just to get Savage or 200 Weapon Expert and just do more damage. I still am not a fan of Carnage or Morale Boost, though. I'm just not a big fan of those. They're not that great, in my opinion. It's better to be buffed before the fight, not after you kill someone. And then, as a tank, ideally, you're always going to get Savage Roar, and this is your choice. Rage is still really good, because when they run past you, if it's a rogue, he'll start beating on your ranger, and you won't be able to latch on to him very well, so the movement speed is good. It's still better to get Rage and Savage Roar. But as a tanky barbarian and playing in a team, then Warcry would be okay to support your team and be even tankier. And the Reckless Attack would be good in the niche scenarios if you want to do the niche scenario route of trying to kill the tanky fighter or barbarian or whatever, plate armor user guy, basically. But generally, Savage Roar or Rage are usually the best to go with. It's only if you want to try to be in that niche scenario, then you swap out one. But you always keep Savage Roar. Like, Savage Roar is a must-have. It's so good. Okay, so that's tank in a nutshell. Let's talk about DPS now and hunting people down, shirtless barbarian, you know, that type of style. So, DPS, obviously, axe specialization again, do more damage. Berserker's a must-have, so you can do more damage when that relentless swinging when you're just latched onto someone. But then after that, you're going to get Smash so that you can chase people. That's always a good one, especially as aggressive barbarian. You know, someone closes the door on you, you just smash the door immediately, and then just keep chasing. It narrows their options, and you can corner people better and get kills. Then the last one's either going to be Smash or Two-Handed Weapon Expert. Unless you, for some reason, think you need to have magic resistance, then you could get Iron Will. But otherwise, you're going to get Savage or Two-Handed Weapon Expert, or neither, depending on the scenario. So here's the scenarios. If you're playing as aggressive barbarian, but you have chest armor on anyway, then you don't want Savage because it literally won't do anything. But also, Two-Handed Weapon Expert won't do anything if you're using a one-handed weapon. So if you're using a one-handed weapon, then you get Savage. If you're wearing a chest piece, then get Two-Handed Weapon Expert as your last one. If you are wearing a chest piece and have a one-handed weapon, then don't get either of these, and instead get either Toughness or Iron Will. Toughness would be a good all-rounder. Iron Will is a little more niche, but you could get it. Or if you really feel like you're going to be pub stomping noobs, then you probably get Morale Boost. Carnage, I'm not a believer in Carnage. I think it's underpowered. So again, axe specialization, Berserker, Smash, and then either Savage, Two-Handed Weapon Expert, or if neither of these apply based on your build, then Toughness, in my opinion. Skills, it's going to be Rage, and then Savage Roar for like 90% of the time or more. If you want to, though, you could go Savage Roar and Reckless Attack and try to be that niche scenario of having an ability for killing the heavily armored people. But to be more consistent, Rage and Savage Roar are generally better, so you can chase people down and kill them, and so you can reduce their damage so that you can more easily win the fight against them. But a lot of this hinges on gear. So we need to talk about gear now because it actually matters a lot for Barbarian. So move speed is really important. The reason you might want to go shirtless is because the chest armor, even though I don't see any Barbarian ones in here, but chest armor reduces move speed by a lot when it's plate armor. So generally speaking, you don't want to get too heavy or else you won't be able to move. So if you're building a tanky barbarian, yeah, you can put in all the armor in the world, and your only job is to guard your cleric or your wizard or your ranger. Yeah, sure, put on tons of armor, build around that. That's fine. But if you're playing the DPS barbarian who runs down and just latches onto people and beats on them, you got to be mindful of that minus move speed on some of this gear because it will weigh you down and you'll be too slow to catch anyone. So that's an important thing to keep in mind. Armor versus move speed is a decision you'll have to make based on what playstyle you decide you want to play or what you'd like to play. As for axes, there's a huge problem with the default axe you need to know about. The default battle axe swings so slow that if you're fighting a rogue, they can actually walk up, stab you in the face, and then back off between your melee swings. So if you swing, they can just walk backwards, and then after your swing, walk back up to you and stab you, and then back off before your next swing, and there's nothing you can do about it. Backpedaling won't help. They're actually fast enough to get away with that. So ideally, you always want to bring a one-handed axe with you that's faster or some type of faster weapon on your second slot, just so in case you run into a rogue, you can actually defend yourself correctly. Also, you have these throwing axes. It's not going to do enough damage to save you from a rogue, but they are nice for finishing people off when they're running away and out of range or something. Or a niche scenario, like I was a cleric one time locked in a room, and there was a barbarian looking at me through a window, and he started throwing axes at me, and I was like, oh, I'll just heal through it. But the guy brought 3 sets of axes, and so I finally had to drop down into the skeletons and stuff, and then I ended up dying. So that can be a thing. Just keep in mind that you have axes, time and place for them. They definitely can win fights. I've seen barbarians get the finishing kill with a throwing axe all the time. It's really nice just to have some type of ranged attack. And you default to having 3 every time you die, so they're the gray ones, but hey, there's some damage. So that's everything you know roughly about gear. As for stats, obviously just go all in on strength. Anything that has strength you want. Other than that, you might want agility so you can move faster. Resourcefulness will make you open doors faster, but it's not really that big of a deal because you smash, you can just break things open. So really strength, then agility. After that, you know, also the weird stats, you know, if you see move speed, absolutely you want move speed. That is huge. Other than that, you know, if you see any defense stuff, that's good. And if you see anything to increase your physical power, that's also good. So physical power, defense, move speed, strength, and agility are really all you're after as a barbarian. Okay, so now let's talk about the actual in-game strategies as a barbarian. So this is going to depend on a lot of things. Are you playing solo? Are you playing with a team? Or do you want to play tanky? Which way do you want to play? So as a solo barbarian, it's generally better to go the DPS style we talked about. And then what I would recommend doing if you're new to the game or new to melee combat in this game, if you haven't played a melee class before, what you'll want to do is just go in with the default gear, just run as fast as you can, just kill everything you see, and then until you die. And just do that for like a few hours until you, if you haven't learned the maps, do it until you learn the maps, do it until you get a better feel for melee, do it until you get a better feel for, like, you know, the nuance of melee combat, and then start, you know, taking it more seriously. That's always my recommendation if you're actually new. But after that, as a solo at least, what you'll want to do generally as a barbarian is, ideally you're going to, surprising as an ambush, as a barbarian, you're going to ambush someone. That's the best case scenario. You're just waiting somewhere. Someone walks through a hallway, and you just start beating on them. And if you do that, your odds of winning are through the roof, basically. But generally, you know, you can just run in and kill people. The big thing you got to watch out for is any ranged class. If you have to go down a long, narrow hallway, and there's a ranger on the other end or a wizard on the other end, you probably just shouldn't do it. Like, it's just dangerous to do it. If they're good, you'll just die. So, important thing, especially as a solo barbarian, is knowing when to go in and when to know that you can't go in. Like, there's just times you just cannot go in as a solo, at least. And then the tanky build is not something you generally want to do as a solo because it's just not going to give you enough value. It's better, you only want to kill someone, so you need to just be as efficient as possible with that. Once you play with a team, though, it's a little bit different. In team play, if you play the tanky build, you're basically just going to hang back and guard your ranged user. And when people try to push up on you, then you know you go up and start swinging and don't let them get past you. Is basically your job as a tanky barbarian, and then let your ranged people do the job for you. As a DPS barbarian in a team setting, it's going to be you wait for the right moment. And even as a tank, it's like this to some degree. You wait for the right moment, and when you think you can close the gap without taking a bunch of damage, you close the gap. You use rage, and you just run at them, and you try to swing on them, and just latch onto them, and don't let them get away. You just full commit, keep swinging until they're dead, or until you're dead. That's generally the way to do it. Once you get really good, you know, you'll get better at the nuance of it, because, like, really, really good barbarians know at a certain point, like, okay, I should back off, pull out my Francisca axes, and throw some real fast as I disengage or something. Like, there's a time to disengage. But generally speaking, especially if you're newer and still learning barbarian, once you're committed, you're pretty committed. You just keep swinging. And, like, you can disengage at certain times if you see the opportunity, but you just wait for the right moment. You just don't, the number one thing is barbarian, you just don't want to get caught out. You do not want to get caught in a long, narrow hallway against range users, or else by the time you get to them, you'll be so weak that you'll just die. So that's the biggest thing, regardless, team play, solo, whatever. That's the biggest thing to know. So that's everything I got for you guys in this video, the builds and the perks and the skills and tips and things. So hopefully it helps you out. And hopefully now you have a better idea of how to play Barbarian. And if this video helped you out and you want to return the favor to me, you could just go to my Steam page for Art Gallery Simulator. I'm making this simulator game. And if you guys want to, the link will be in the description in this video below the first paragraph. And you can go there and add it to your wish list, which won't buy. It'll just tell you when it comes out. It would help me out a lot if you do that. If you want to return the favor, just do that. It's going to be a simulator game where you start off with an art gallery in the slums and you build it up. Eventually you get a middle class one in the middle class area. And then eventually you get a downtown art museum that makes admission money and stuff like that. Customize your shop, all that type of stuff. Got a lot of features for it coming out. It'll come out in March, probably April. I'll probably delay till April or something. But yeah, if you just go wishlist this, that would help me out a lot. And I would appreciate that a lot. All right, guys, that's all I got for you in this video. I hope it helped you out. I hope now that you know how to play Barbarian in Dark and Darker.